All right, I think we are good. So first of all, thank you very much to everyone who is basically attending. So today I have Nima Kangahi, am I right?
Wow, dude, that's incredible.
All right, I got it, I practiced. So from Opendoor. And, I wanted to have Nima join me today for a discussion. And the main reason why is that, iBuyer is getting a ton of um, press, basically. It seems like every company under the sun right now has basically an iBuyer type program, whether it's Zillow, EXP, Realogy, KW. Everyone is trying to basically do an iBuyer program, but I believe that all of this really stems from the original market maker, the real creators of the program, which is basically Opendoor, which is why I asked Nima to kind of join us so that we can dispel and find out what the opportunities are for those of you that are in the real estate business, basically. Because I think there's a lot of people that don't understand what the program is. They believe that it's a fix and flip. They believe that, the iBuyers are out to try and, steal equity and things like that. And the iBuyers are competing directly against you, the real estate agent. So what I want to do is have a discussion with Nima, get it directly from the source, ask the hard questions, and make sure basically that it makes sense for you guys to partner up with these kind of companies. So Nima, I'm gonna let you do a little intro of yourself. I did a little bit of homework. I got some questions that I want to ask for you,
Okay.
and we'll get this thing started here, and hopefully everyone will learn something, whether they want to work with the company or if they don't. That's okay. What we want to do is provide some education so that you understand what the real programs are about. So Nima, tell us a little bit about Opendoor.
Yeah. So Jesse, Opendoor, you're right. So Opendoor basically created the term iBuyer.
Okay.
And I get this question all the time, which is what is an iBuyer? What does it even mean? Right. So let's start there. So
Okay.
iBuyer stands for instant buyer. And all that means is that now, this is the simplest way to actually describe it. This is how I explain it to family members and friends is you used to have humans that bought homes, and now you've got companies that buy homes, and they're willing to make an instant offer, me being it's the cash offer. So
Okay.
Opendoor makes a cash offer and is willing to buy your home. So at the end of the day, if you just drop the I, it's a buyer. It's another buyer out in the
Okay.
market. And we at Opendoor created the whole iBuyer phenomenon. And in 2014 started to develop this model. And this model has been around for some time. All we did at Opendoor is make it a little more consumer centric, make it a little
Right.
bit easier for the consumer to actually leverage this for themselves, as opposed to the traditional investor that was doing something similar to this in real estate. So all the real estate
Right.
professionals that are watching this are probably going, yeah, this model isn't new, man. We know this has been around.
Right.
What's new about it is that it's being done now in a really cool and efficient way online.
Okay.
And so with Opendoor, now we are going to be in 25 markets. We're in 22 markets. We will be expanding to Boise, Idaho. We will be expanding to St. Louis. And then we just recently on 10/22 launched Salt Lake City.
Oh, wow.
So we're
Okay.
expanding pretty quick to some markets that it makes sense for us to be in. And so, I'm super excited to be here because, as you said, Jesse, there's a lot of buzz in the industry about the iBuyer world. And I
Right.
think the most important thing is to answer those tough questions around, how do I get paid? Are you trying to cut out the agent? What are your fees? All these things that we hear online
Right.
and all these discussions that happen. Let's just get it out on the table. Let's have an honest conversation. And
Yeah.
to your point, if you see an opportunity in it, which I hope you do, great, leverage it to the max. And if it's
Right.
not for you, that's okay too, right? It may not be for everybody. So
Right.
the intent of today is to make it an educational session and bring you the information.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I have a little motto that's called always be curious, basically. And the thing is, the curiosity is key because it shows that you want to try and learn. And just because you're learning something doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to use it, but it makes you educated about it, because what's going to end up happening is customers are going to learn about it. They're going to talk about it, and you want to make sure that at least you have the ground rules and understand how the programs work, because if you're faced to that as a true real estate professional, it only makes sense for you to know deeply how those programs work. No differently than, let's say, the Zestimate comes up in a conversation and you understand how to basically talk to how that Zestimate is generated and things like that. So I think that that's really key. The other thing I think that's important that you talked about, Nima, is that there's a difference between these and these old school programs where maybe it was a REIT that was buying a company that was looking to make a specific amount of profit, whether it's from buy and hold or buy and flip or basically leasing properties or something like that. And for you guys, what I think is really clear is that ultimately you're trying to increase transaction velocity. It's not to make a lot on a few transactions, but it's to make a little on the volume of transactions, get people moving. And in reality, the main problem in real estate right now is that we have an inventory problem. And that inventory problem is because people don't want to move. So if this is something that gives someone some certainty and increases transaction velocity, everybody wins no matter what, whether you work with iBuyers or not. And I think that that's a big takeaway that everyone needs to kind of be aware of.
Well said, Jesse. Well said.
Yeah. So, one thing that we always hear is, well, there's some feedback that I've seen from agents and groups, and they'll say, oh, I got an offer and it was like totally lowballed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that is because it comes in the wrong time, right? They're submitting or requesting an offer after the property has been on the market. So technically it's kind of like it's kind of like relisting and expired. So you guys are going to price accordingly, I'm assuming. Can you tell us what is optimal to get a maximum offer from basically Opendoor? Like, what do you guys want to see, and maybe talk to like those differences in those offers that we see sometimes?
Absolutely. So let's actually think about this and how the agent experiences Opendoor or other iBuyers, right? In a world where you're sort of unsure about an iBuyer and you're not quite sure how it's going to work, and maybe you're fearful of even bringing in on the conversation early on, what tends to happen, Jesse, is most agents will go into the listing appointment, do a great job, get the listing. They may not, the iBuyer question may or may not come up. It's coming up more and more.
Okay.
But what they tend to say typically in those meetings, from what I've heard, is if that question comes up, hey, what about iBuyers? They'll say something like, oh, you don't want to mess with that. It's
right.
Low offers, high fees. That's how they get you on that. And the client, trusting the agent, goes, oh, okay, that must make sense. And okay, let's move forward. Let's list. Well,
right.
Let's walk down this journey, right? Now you've listed the home. You've done all the work to get it ready and all that stuff. And you've put it on the market. And I know those of you watching this probably doesn't happen to you, but for those agents that this does happen to, let's say the home sits on the market a little bit longer than you thought it was going to, and even longer than the client thought it was going to.
Right.
Well, every day that it sits longer on the market than the client thought it should, they start getting nervous. They start wondering, how much, I wonder when I'm going to get an offer. So sometimes we see the consumer coming to us and requesting an offer while it's still listed. Well, we will always send that offer to the agent. So don't worry, agents out there. If your consumer tries to go behind your back and not tell you that home is listed, we're sending you the offer so you're aware of it.
So let's get a little bit of clarity of that one more time. So what you're saying is the consumer already has their property listed with the agent, and there's situations where the consumer has gone directly to you guys, requested an offer, and because that property is listed and you guys are following all of the guidelines, basically, you're actually presenting the offer not directly back to the consumer, but directly to the listing agent, because when you received the offer, you saw that the property was already listed.
That's correct. And the way that we do that is we pull that information off MLS, we see who the agent is, and we send that offer to the agent. But now let's say you, agent, get the offer. and you
Right.
take a look at it and you go, what the heck? This is a low ball offer. These are high fees. This is not good for my seller. You present it to the seller. The seller goes, yeah, those are not the numbers I like. Well,
Right.
here's what just happened, right? You listed the home. It is on the market. It has been exposed. It has a price tag to it. It has now been sitting. And now you're coming to us later down the process.
Right.
Us, just like any other buyer, we're not going to come in at asking price. And especially now that it's listed, if you take a look at our model at Opendoor, our goal is to buy a home, make it accessible to all buyers that are interested, and then sell that home as quickly as possible.
Right.
Buying a home that's been listed and has been sitting, and you are requesting an offer at the tail end of the process, is not going to get you a great offer. And in fact, the fees are probably going to be a little higher. So let's flip this. What should I do? What's the right way of doing this?
Mhm.
The simple and the right way to do this, and the timing is important because you can actually get your seller more money, is you go on a listing appointment, you kill it, you get the contract, you got the listing.
Okay.
Before you do all that work, before you get it ready, before you tell them to fix things and all that stuff and all the marketing you're going to do, come back to your office, go to opendoor.com/agents, go to the agents portal, the site. So opendoor.com/agents, give us the details of the property. We see that you're the agent that's submitting that.
Right.
And then we'll send you an offer within 24 hours. And at that point, you're going to get our best offer because we want to get that home before it gets on the MLS. So that's when we're going to have better fees, lower fees and a better offer compared to you've
Right.
listed it. And now our fees and our offers are not going to look as great.
So are other, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you know if other iBuyer programs allow their agents to kind of partner in the same way that you guys are doing? Or is it more, the consumer is going direct and the agent doesn't have as much opportunity to participate in those transactions?
It would be tough for me to say exactly how
Okay.
their model works because I just don't know, and I'd hate to
Okay.
like say something that's not true.
Right.
It,
Right.
it, for us, we are operating as a brokerage in each city that we are in.
Okay.
So we are playing by the same rules that other brokers are. So we're sort of apples to apples there.
Okay.
Other buyers, I don't know that are always positioned as a broker, so they might go about it differently.
Okay.
But for us, I think that's the most important thing to remember.
Right.
Coming to us early and often. And by the way, simple note, Jesse, you may come to us, let's say you're going on a listing appointment this week and you get the listing and you're like, oh, let me give this a shot and see if it works.
Mhm.
And you get that initial offer. If you're not a fan or if you don't think it's good, don't judge it all. Don't judge the entire thing by the one offer you
By the one
requested.
offer.
Realistically, every listing you get, this is a best practice to come and get an offer, because at the end of the day, your client is probably going to hear about this as an option. And it's best, in my opinion, that an agent brings that forward and has the conversation with the client.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting thing that revolves around this. National Association of Realtors has a study that shows that if you're the listing agent and you sold the property and that consumer is buying within like a 10 or 20 mile radius, there's something like a 75% chance that that consumer will use the same agent to do the next transaction. And so I think the revenue model, or the real big opportunity is here as a listing agent, is you got the listing, you're already prepared, you're already protected because you have your compensation model in place. You get this iBuyer offer, receive the offer, and then now you can quickly move this particular person onto the next phase and go and help them on the next transaction and go possibly earn revenue on the move up, basically. So it actually increases transaction velocity and probably revenue potential pretty significantly, because you're moving this so fast when it's kind of top of mind with that particular customer.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
When they submit the offer and it comes back
Mhm.
and they review it, how does their fees, the commission structure and your guys' fees, can you talk to a little bit about how all of that kind of works together. And I think we talked that we might have a presentation or something that we can take a look at, or basically a net sheet, and see what that looks like so that they understand how that model basically works when you're
Sure.
receiving that offer. Do you have anything for us by chance?
Yeah, you know what? I can share a few slides with you that kind
Okay.
of break down our fees into 4 buckets or categories that I think is
Okay.
important for the agent to be familiar with. So
Okay.
as you are sharing apples to apples, you know your side as an agent and how to explain
Okay.
that, but we don't always know how to explain the iBuyer side.
Yeah.
Nor.
And anyone, as you have questions, let us know that you're getting some value from this. Give us a like, give us a thumb up, share this with whoever you want. You could try and post some questions in the comments, and as we're having this discussion, we'll try and address those comments as well. Can't guarantee we'll get to everyone, but because it's kind of hard for us, there's a little bit of a delay and stuff like that on these Facebook Lives. But please, if you have any questions, post them in there, because if not, then it'll come up through basically, we'll try and answer them after the fact. So
All
I
right,
think
I'm
that'll
going to
be
share
helpful.
this with you.
Okay.
Let me know if you guys can see it.
I can see it. Looks all clear on my end.
Okay, cool. Well, let me walk you through this. Why don't I do this, Jesse? Let me know if you're okay with this or if you just want me to jump to the fees. But we talked about the offer. I could show you as an agent what you would see in an offer so you know what to expect. And then we can
Okay.
go down and talk about what the fees look like.
Yeah, let's just kind of go top to bottom of it, as long as it's kind of quick. I don't want this to be a sales pitch or anything like that. I want them to just understand
Yeah.
what they're in for if they were to do this, so that you don't go into it as a virgin to begin with.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm going to jump to the fee page.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you when you get an offer, how we break down the fee. So
Okay.
this is a real life example. I pulled one recently.
Okay.
And I just pulled one randomly. So if you see here, you'll see it says your client service charge is 7.5%.
Okay.
What most agents will do is they'll see the screen and they'll go 7.5%, and they'll screenshot it, share it on Facebook, and all of a sudden you've got this string of agents going, oh, you're robbing people and all this stuff.
Right.
Well, let's actually break this down and let's talk about apples to apples. So when you look
Okay.
at the 7.5%, the most common mistake agents make is that they take that 7.5% and they compare it to their 6% to the consumer, and they go, hey, look, here is way higher. I'm
Right.
here, and this is why you should use me. That's in a nutshell. So let me break down what all goes into the 7.5%, because I think it's important that you know as an agent, and then you can
Yeah.
do it good side by side.
Yeah, one thing on that too, that's kind of interesting, because they'll do that comparison, and I've seen this happen as well, where
Yeah.
they're like, oh, my fees are 6% and they're 7.5%, so you're leaving money on the table. But when you're making your offer, the list price is pretty much like, this is what we're gonna pay, versus on the real estate commission. A lot of times, if you use National Association of Realtor data again, the list to sold price tends to be 98, 99%. So even though, you're saying, oh, I could get you a little bit higher amount with a smaller fee, you have to be really careful there, because if you can't deliver on that and you end up, dropping the price by 1 or 2%, which, historically seems to be normal through the negotiations, and you have a 6%, now all of a sudden that's 8% difference from the listing price versus whatever your guys' offer is. And so it's important to look at the math very carefully, I think, from both the consumer point of view and the real estate agent point of view when you're making these disclosures. So
100% right, Jesse. So, you brought up a great point. So sale price, list price, that varies sometimes. So that can
right.
also mess with the math a little bit. But if we just looked at fees and compared fees,
Okay.
so let's break down the 7.5. I always tell agents there's 4 buckets you want to think about. The top
Okay.
left is the buyer's agent commission. It's the co-broke. So we will collect that, whatever that listing is paying us, right? We'll collect that 3%.
Okay.
And then we use that as a pass-through, because we end up listing that home, and the agent that comes and represents the buyer, we end up paying that agent that 3%.
Okay.
So so in the first top left bucket, there's that co-broke that we collect. And then
Okay.
there is the listing and risk cost. So we take a look at the home. Each home can vary. So in this scenario, you're seeing a 2% listing cost. Sometimes it's down to 1%. That one can vary because it depends on the property. And
Okay.
that one is obviously us getting the home ready to put it on the market.
Okay.
And then in this scenario, we've got the third bucket, which is holding costs. And this is one bucket that agents often don't talk about, at least not a lot of agents talk about with their
Okay.
seller is, hey, look, if we keep this property, you're paying taxes monthly, you're maintaining it, how much are you paying for the gardening service, all that stuff. Well,
Okay.
we're taking that into consideration, right? Because when we list the home, we've got to still maintain it, keep the lights on, AC on, or heater.
Right.
The lawn needs to be serviced, all that stuff. So we take the holding cost into consideration, and that can vary. So I would say the listing cost and the holding cost tends to be the one that fluctuates, because those are the ones that are very property and market specific.
Okay.
And then we have the fourth bucket is a 1% convenience. I like to call it a 1% certainty charge that
Right.
you're getting a cash offer. You could cancel at any point in the process, which makes you feel a little more comfortable.
Okay.
And you can pick your closing date anywhere from 10 to 60 days out, upwards of 9 months if you're going into a new build, because we have
Okay.
new build programs.
So it's kind
So
of it's kind of the Nordstrom premium.
yes, yes. So when I break down this fee, I think it's imperative that agents spend that additional time to understand what goes in the 7.5, so that you're not purely doing a 7.5 versus 6% traditional commission.
Okay.
You truly got to do an apples to apples. Talk about what you mentioned, Jesse, between list and sale. Let's talk about the time it's going to take. Let's
Okay.
talk about the additional cost it's going to cost you to get it ready, get it repaired, get it staged, all these things, paint those walls, pay the mortgage, pay the property taxes. When you actually take all that into consideration,
Right.
we're not as far as people actually think we are.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. And so once this, can we see the breakdown of those like individual fees, kind of some numbers that you actually have on a real transaction? It looks like in your next slides might be coming through on that.
We show a estimate of cost, like
Okay.
closing cost, which is pretty similar, because right at that point we don't have all the details. And then
Okay.
the repair cost here, if you see here, it says pending assessment.
Okay.
So our pending assessment means when we make an offer and your seller chooses to accept it, the world isn't that different in the real estate space at that point. We are now wanting to do an inspection, an assessment. So we schedule a date, we come in, we do an assessment.
Right.
And then based on that assessment, there could be some additional items that we say we believe need to be repaired.
Okay.
And with that comes a cost. So we'll have an itemized list
Okay.
after the assessment. And you and the seller can go through that list and say, you can negotiate like would normally do. You could say, we'll take care of these, but we don't, want to take care of these.
Okay.
And the ones or you could just say, don't want to deal with it, deduct it from the net.
Okay.
And we'll do that, right? Which is what some people opt in with
But
that want to move forward.
again, just for clarity, so once that comes back, like a traditional transaction, the agent can then work with their seller and say, okay, we'll do these, or I've got a guy that can make these repairs, or whatever it might be. So if your guys' cost seems to be larger than what they believe they can get the work done for, you guys are okay if they basically do some of that work.
100%. There are times where people have handyman or they're handy,
Okay.
and they're like, you know what, I'll fix that doorknob. That's not going to cost that much.
Okay.
100%. You could do that, and then we'll just sign off on it, and we're ready to go.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are not aware of that, because in some of the groups that I see, there's always someone saying like, oh, the repairs were exorbitant or whatever it might be, basically. And, the fact that now we know that the agent can help that particular person do it, or the buyer has the opportunity to do it themselves, they can make the determination of what their time is worth, right? Is it worth for us to go through that process, do it ourselves, and hire the handyman and coordinate and do all that? Or should we just basically offload some of that back to, the company and take a convenience fee or take a loss, much like trading in a car at a car lot, basically? So
yeah, and it's funny, Jesse, that analogy has been coming up a lot, and I think it's a really great analogy to draw a parallel between the two industries, because in the automobile industry, we're somewhat used to the model of if you have a car and you want to get a new car, if you go to the dealership and want to trade in your car, you 100% know you're not getting top dollar for it, right?
Right.
We know
Yeah.
that. We know that. And so that could be like our traditional investor versus like going and listing with an agent.
Right.
But then what happened was people would just go to the dealer and be like, I just don't want to deal with it, and would maybe
Right.
a little bit of money versus having to go sell it outright on their own. Well, in came CarMax. And what did CarMax do? CarMax said, oh, there's a problem here, an issue.
Okay.
People want to get the right money for their car, but they don't want to deal with the hassle of what the paperwork might entail, the
Right.
title and all that stuff. We're willing to take care of all that and give them a check that they can go with a little bit more money and go get that new car. So
Okay.
this is something that is somewhat similar to us as well, right? You've got listing agent that could probably get you top dollar, most likely, right? By doing all these things and getting the home ready.
Right.
And it could take longer. And then you've got traditional investor that's buying maybe 75 cents on the dollar, right? Or and trying to make this massive profit.
Right.
And you had CarMax that came in the middle. And that's sort of where we are. We're in the middle.
Okay.
And we understand that we may not always be the option that's going to get you the highest net.
Right.
But we also understand the real estate space, there is a lot of uncertainty and inconvenience that comes along with selling your home. And there's definitely a price for that people are willing to pay.
Yeah, again, referencing some data that I've seen out there from National Association of Realtors, one of the top things for selling is usually, based on life events. And a lot of times those life events actually come with specific time constraints. They're looking to try and accomplish something, whether it's a family trying to make a move over the summer so that their kids can be back in to the new school district, or job relocations or something like that. Most transactions have some kind of time constraint. And I think that that's a convenience that you guys are giving them as well, basically, is, hey, if you have that time constraint, we can work with you and give you that certainty that's going to come across. Just like trading in the car, you don't have to wait for the ad on Craigslist, the guy to show up at your house and haggle back and forth and do all of that stuff. You just want the path of least resistance, and people are willing to pay for that experience. I want to circle back around in terms of the fees. And I'm the listing agent. I have the listing. I submit the offer.
Okay.
What does compensation look like at that point? Because obviously we have a 6%, or 5% or whatever that particular agent negotiated with, basically compensation on the listing side. And then you have your offer that's coming in. How are they going to receive compensation if the transaction goes through you?
Sure. So let me do this, because sometimes just talking through this gets a little confusing. But what I'd like to do is show you a slide here where I often break it down. So it's how do I get paid as an agent, right?
Right.
There's one of two ways, and in the one, I'll break down each for you. So in the first one, just to give you something to stare at and look at, in the first scenario, it's the simplest, Jesse, and this is the scenario every agent's familiar with, is, have you established agency? Do you have a contract? If you have a contract, there is not anything different about us interacting with you. If we make an offer and you accept the offer, or your seller accepts it, whatever is stated on the purchase contract is what you get paid, or on the contract that you have with your client. So if you have 3 to the buyer, 3 to the listing agent, you're getting paid that 3%. Now, where a lot of people get confused is, I originally showed you that 7.5% fee.
Right.
They go, okay, so you're charging 7.5%. Does that include my 3% that my seller is paying me? No, it does not. That just includes the 3% we're collecting in our listing, holding, and convenience charge.
Okay.
So if we simply went off of the 7.5 I showed you earlier in that example, if you got an offer back and it said 7.5% fee, and on the contract it said you're getting paid as a listing agent 3%, well, the total cost to the consumer would be 10.5%. Here is where I usually enter in this script for agents. You go on a listing appointment and you get the contract. here's where I think the best agents are moving to, and this is the pitch that they're using.
Okay.
They're going in on an appointment and they're saying, look, I've got a couple packages for you. I've got
Okay.
package A, that's the full shebang. It's probably going to net you the highest dollars. I'm going to stage, I'm going to do video, I'm going to do photos. We're going to
Okay.
get ready to market. It might take 60 to 90 days, but this is going to get you this top dollar. This is the package. For this, I charge 3%.
Okay.
Now, what I will also do is there are companies that are willing to buy homes for cash. I'm going to go out to Opendoor. I'm going to get an offer. I'm going to come back. And should you take that cash offer before we do everything I just talked to you about,
Right.
what I will do is I'll reduce my commission from 3 to 1.5. I'll still represent you through this transaction, but I won't charge you that additional 1.5 because I didn't have to do all that work to get you a buyer.
Right.
So I love that variable commission structure and giving the client options and being fair somewhat to say, look, if I don't have to spend my time, money, energy to get you an offer and we get into contract, well, I'm willing to reduce that commission. I think getting paid, and to your earlier stat, Jesse, if I know I can now go take that person to go buy them another home and I collect 3 there and I'm getting paid 1.5 here, right? So I'm now getting 4.5, but I'm getting 4.5 in 45 days as opposed to getting, my
Right.
3 and 3 or 6 total in 90, 120, who knows how long.
Right.
That is what you were talking about earlier, where your dollar per hour shoots up.
Right.
You're helping more people, making more money in less time. So I
Yeah.
love option number 1 and treating it in such a way where you deliver it as, look, I can list it for you. Here's what it looks like. But if you
Right.
don't want me to list it, we can go with Opendoor. The second way agents get paid is this option here, which is I talk to Jesse and I say, hey, Jesse, I'm your agent. I went to Opendoor. Opendoor is willing to pay you $300,000. You said $300,000 would have worked for you. Look, I don't want you to have to pay me for just doing that if you don't want. I'm happy to refer you if you feel comfortable just working directly with Opendoor. And
Right.
if I refer you, Jesse, and you work with Opendoor, then I will get a 1% commission fee paid to me.
Right. Referral fee paid directly
Referral fee.
from Opendoor.
And now, full disclosure, in some cities and markets, our referral fees have changed. So market to market, it could vary.
Okay.
So there is a range there, and we'll always share that with you. But we do pay a referral fee, and it works very similar to a broker to broker referral model, which is we'll work directly with the seller. Once the transaction closes, 21 plus days later, we'll give you the referral.
Right. It's almost similar to like registering a buyer with a new construction project or something to that effect as well, basically. So,
That's correct. That's correct. And just a small caveat so I can sleep at night here on the referral option here. If the seller has already requested an offer in the past 30 days, then we can't pay that referral fee because we already have an offer out to that seller, just to be fair.
Right.
To
Okay.
everyone.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So going back to, the first one, the agent has agency,
Yep.
right? Has the listing agreement. You basically present the offer. What you're basically saying is, for sake of conversation, let's say that commission was going to be split 50-50, whatever the total fee was. They're still entitled to their total fee plus whatever your guys' service fee, but what you're making, the recommendation that you're making. So let's say it was 7.5, they were charging 6%, so that's 13.5%. But now basically they can adjust it back down to 10.5%. You're saying, hey, to make it even easier, negotiate your 3% down or whatever your 50% was of that split or whatever your negotiated rate was, even down a little bit further so that you can move that transaction forward faster and give a win-win to basically everybody. Is that
Absolutely
pretty correct?
Absolutely. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And Ultimately, I think it's important for all of us to, that are in the real estate space to understand that the one thing that every consumer remembers is the experience of the real estate transaction, right? It's never the fee. Nobody wakes up and goes, I paid, $13,472 in fees. All they remember is, hey, this was delayed like, 65 days. I had to make these repairs last minute. It was super stressful. And,
Sure.
I think what iBuyers primarily do is give certainty, right? Certainty to the transaction, that the
Yes.
transaction is going to happen, that those 50 or 60% of people that need to make a contingent offer because they need to sell a house, you can eliminate a lot of that. And it actually just increases, again, transaction velocity for everyone that's involved, whether you're participating in iBuyers or not. At the end of the day, I believe in the next few years, you're going to see the amount of sales where we've been stalled at, 4.5, 5 million to 5.5 million, pretty normally transactions per year. I bet you we're going to see this start creeping up and getting into the 6 million and who knows, maybe even 7 million transactions. So if we have the same amount of agents in the market and there's more transactions, then there's more opportunities there for revenue and more opportunities to basically help people.
Yeah, and Jesse, this is how I also explain it to agents, right? Think about it this way. Opendoor, we will make an offer to you or the consumer, and we pitch us. That we don't pitch
Right,
any other iBuyer. We don't pitch the traditional sale. We pitch us.
right,
If you go to any other iBuyer, they do the same. If you go to any other flat fee service like a Redfin or something out there, they're going to pitch their product. No one's going to go and do the breakdown for the consumer of each
right,
one of these. The only person in this entire equation that is somewhat responsible and has the power to go and actually break down each one of these options is the agent. So
right,
what we're doing here is fantastic because we're bringing education to the agent so that when they're in front of that client, I think the agent in 2020 that wins and beyond is the agent that comes into a listing presentation and says, hey, look, there is traditional sale. There are these cash offers I'm going to break down for you. There's flat fee service. I'm going to go through each one of these and talk about the options for you, the pros and cons, how much each will
right,
make you or may not make you. And then I want to help you make the right decision for you. I have never seen any seller be upset by having more options. And I think
right,
it's really great that the agent does that. If the agent also comes in and all they do is pitch their product and they don't talk about the rest out there,
right,
what you have now done is just made the consumer even more confused when they're looking to you as the expert to help guide them.
right. Yeah, I think that transition to being a true consultant and, having a fiduciary
That's
agreement with that particular person, really looking out for their best interests and being able to define all of that stuff, help them navigate, their decision is really why people still work with people. It's still the reason why most cars are sold on a car lot, right? They still need that sense of comfort from someone to help them. So instead of disparaging, the comparators, if you're able to basically embrace what those companies are doing and have a conversation and educate the customer about that, that's going to make you look like a winner across the board, whether you earn that transaction or not. But most often, because you seem to be the most transparent, you're probably going to win that anyway. So, and in a situation like this, if it comes down to a life event or a time frame or something like that, or a contingent offer, the difference between the two is both going to make sense. And in those cases, they're a partner with you guys. So I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. You and I, kind of talked about for listing agents. I believe that this is a touchy point with some people because what they want is the ability to market that property because that is a indicator of success, right? I have this listing that's up there, and you and I have
just
talked about
sold.
some marketing options here.
Yeah.
And I want to bring this to the forefront because I think that a lot of people are not aware of this. And when you layer this on top of what we talked about, that you're still protected from compensation, there might be a good opportunity here for you. But if, and I'll correct it with you here, if Opendoor purchases the property,
Yep.
and it is not yet listed, so let's say there's a 30-day hold time or whatever it might be, basically, you are allowing the agent to still put their sign in the yard with a sold, that property has been sold, correct?
That's correct. Sure, why not, right?
Okay,
You would have done that in a regular transaction, and if we're in the escrow period and we haven't closed yet, if you literally put your sign out and said coming soon when you met with them, just to build the buzz and even
right,
market the neighborhood, and then you went from like coming soon to sold and left that sign out there, what a great opportunity to
right.
take advantage of that, which I think exactly what you brought up. And this was, Jesse, your idea and your question to me early on was, hey, I want to bring something of value to the agents. Could they put their sign out on the
Right.
yard while we're, in contract? Absolutely. Why not? I think it's a great strategy.
Yeah, and so again, to talk about, revenue generating opportunities, now what ends up happening, that property is technically already gone in escrow, hasn't hit the MLS, so you don't have any competitors that are trying to do the just sold, just listed because they don't even know about that transaction per se yet. And now you could be, as the listing agent, the leader to go back into that neighborhood, farm all of those people and try and get instant offers on those additional properties as well. And now you're the leader of that. And there's, I think, really strong power in that because in that neighborhood, if the sold sign goes up, when you're gone as the agent and Joe goes and visits Tom and goes like, hey, Tom, like, how'd you already get your property sold so fast? You want Tom to make the association that it's my agent that did that deal basically and put me together and made this basically happen really quickly. That experience is really, really powerful, and listings get other listings. And this is where I think that there's, if we, look at it from the point of view of the opportunities that it could create for additional conversations in real estate, where
Sure.
you're eliminating a bunch of marketing because you're creating these amazing experiences and it becomes more word of mouth now. And you're able to retain more in a geographic area and kind of come to dominate. I think there's real power in that. I think you have an agent, Kenny Klaus, who has taken this completely to the next level. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Funny story about Kenny. This is a true story. I validated it with Kenny because I heard it internally at Opendoor and I said, is this true? And then I had a chance to chat with Kenny and sure enough, it was true. And here's the story. So for 24 months, just about, a client of Kenny's came to Opendoor without Kenny knowing and was requesting offers, right? To see how much Opendoor would pay for their home. So now Kenny has worked with them. They know Kenny. Kenny sends them, Kenny's the master at farming. And so he's in
Right,
touch. Now this consumer came directly to us. They requested an offer, 24 months, offer, 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 offer. They didn't accept it. They weren't okay with it. They didn't want to go with it. They called Kenny. Kenny went and met with them. Kenny looked at our offer and then looked at what he could do for them. And he was honest and he said, look, for how much more I could get you, I don't know that it'd be worth the time and effort that we'd have to
right,
get the home ready. I think it's a good offer. And if you take that offer, we can now go and get you that home that you had mentioned you want to get.
right,
So they didn't accept that offer until they talked to Kenny, and Kenny said, yeah, that's right. Let's
right,
do that. Let's move on. And
right,
so what I love about that is it just goes to show you and prove to you that it's really important and people still do value what you say as an agent because you know the market, you know
of
what
course,
you can sell it for.
right,
But having that honest conversation, and yes, Kenny's taken it to another level, right? Kenny on every listing will get offers from all the top iBuyers and will bring it and present it to the client and help them choose
mhm,
what's right for them. And his business has gone even
right.
higher than where it was.
So, I think that, we'll start wrapping this up because we're about, nearly 50 minutes into this, and I wanted to keep it, under an hour or so. Um, at this point, the hard question, what does the consumer or what does the agent have to lose by submitting the offer to you?
So here's the thing, the agent has nothing to lose by coming to us. The reality is the agent also has to gain our trust. We have all marketing shut off on the side where an agent comes to us. So I know the unspoken thing is, if I come to you even before I have a listing agreement, what if I put in all that client's information? Are you going to go direct to them? No, we are not. That is not allowed. We would get slapped on the wrist. And in fact, think about it this way. It would make no sense for us at Opendoor to do that and screw over the agent that does all this business on a month by month basis for the sake of getting that one client. That is not good business. There's no reason for doing that. So there is no downside. There is no downside. And in fact, it's a win-win scenario. You come to us and get an offer early before you list, before you hit it on the MLS. Come and get an offer early. And here's the win-win scenario you have just put yourself in. You are presenting proactively to your client a cash offer. You're explaining to them what it looks like, how it works. If it's not a good offer for them, well, the option of listing with you is going to look that much better.
Right.
So no worries there. If you bring them an offer and it actually works, well, you're the hero that got them into contract without having to do any work.
Right.
It's a win-win scenario. I truly don't see a downside in this. And I believe agents could leverage this. So this is what I tell agents, Jesse. We could be a complement to your business rather than competition. If you don't use us, we naturally become competition. Your biggest competition is the agent that's watching this right now that goes, I'm going to go implement this. And if they go on a listing appointment before you or after you, and their pitch includes an iBuyer package, they're probably going to win that because it's more comprehensive.
Yeah. I also think too, that we need to be hyper aware that the term iBuyer is really going mainstream, as Zillow kind of moves into that market and opens up more and more opportunities. If you look up your own property and you're in one of these markets, like they're offering you iBuyer offers to begin with, and they haven't even started their marketing push yet. And so there is some differences between the programs. And so your consumer, just like they questioned you about a Zestimate, they're going to question you about an iBuyer. And I think it makes a lot of sense, like you said, to be really proactive and introduce the pain point or the option instead of letting them kind of try and research on their own, because then you seem much more confident, and people like to do business with people who are confident to begin with anyway. Mm-hmm. All of this, and you guys, you said you're in 22 markets or so, yep. Rapidly expanding. And I think one thing that's important for us to talk about is, something called the buy box, basically, because you're not buying every property. You're only buying certain properties that kind of meet your guidelines. Do you want to talk to a little bit about that? And then I'll tell them how they can get all of these guidelines for all of the different areas directly via text through us, basically. Is that
so? 100%. If you're watching this, you need to get this. If you're in one of our markets, and if we are in your market, you are gonna want this buy box. And here's why. We have a one pager. Jesse has all of the buy box one pagers for every market that we are in. On that one pager, you'll see a zip code range of everywhere we purchase. That is gold for you as the agent, because now you can go market that area. And it also talks about the criteria of what we look for. So it'll tell you the price range in some markets, like I'm in Dallas. So in Dallas, Fort Worth, we buy 100,000 to 350 single family home, townhomes. We don't do gated communities in DFW, but in other markets, we do gated communities. In Denver, we go up to 600,000. So the price points change depending on the market you're in. You're gonna want this buy box one pager because it tells you what we buy and it tells you where we buy it. So you could get really tactical and almost start to create a lead generation tool if you wanted for yourself of uncovering sellers that are thinking about selling, because you could bring them an offer. In fact, there is an agent with JPAR in Atlanta that has found a sweet spot for himself where he identifies all the FSBOs, tells them that he can get them an offer, comes to Opendoor, gets a cash offer, goes and has that conversation. If it works for them, they move forward. If it doesn't, he's been convincing them to list with them.
Right.
So, but you've got to know what we purchase and where in order to implement that. And that's where the buy box comes into play.
Okay. So I'll let everyone know where you can get this. So, you can send a text to area code 815-205-5550. And in the text message, just put the word buy box as 2 words, BUYBOX. You'll instantly get a text back. In that text message, there'll be a link where you can download all of the PDFs to basically everything that's in there. It's probably in the top of this Facebook live comment as well, basically. I think I put it in there. So if you want to send that text, you'll get all of these buy box opportunities. And I think that Nima just gave you some gold there in terms of, you know, going back, looking at the zip code, representing basically those to those FSBOs and coming with a real hard cash offer. And then if that doesn't work, converting that over into a traditional listing, I think was worth your time invested here, no matter what. So I know that I'm going to coach some of our friends in our group and some of our users on that for sure, basically. So again, I just want to say thank you very much for your time and you know, on answering the questions honestly. And you know, I just thought of another idea, which I'll share in a private group first, basically with, with what you just mentioned.
Exclusive.
But from a marketing point of view, I totally agree. I believe that, you know, it makes sense to everyone to really understand the math of these transactions. I spent 24 years as a mortgage lender, and I know that oftentimes, you know, I've been watching some of these consumers and some of the agents talking about the fees, and, you know, I challenge them to take out their last 2 or 3 closing statements and average out what the cost of that sale was and convert it into a percentage. And sometimes people are blown away by what the real cost was. So I think first and foremost, do yourself a favor if you're in the business, because you will be having these conversations no matter what. And the conversation is switching from fee to net, because if you look at the way that they're presenting, you know, the iBuyers is coming at this from, this is what you are going to net out from this transaction. And for real estate agents, this is changing the conversation. And there's lots of other pressure that is happening right now, whether it's, you know, discount services that are coming in, one-stop shops that are coming in, iBuyers coming in. The commission model itself is under pressure with some of the lawsuits that are taking place. So it's important for you, if you're going to be a true real estate professional going forward, to truly educate yourself of all of these opportunities. Whether you want to use them or not, you need to be able to speak intelligently when that consumer basically is confronting you on that, because oftentimes, just like the consumer knows the market better than some agents do, because they've been researching in a really small area for a long time, it's the same thing with this kind of opportunity, basically. So Nima, is there anything you think that we should kind of close this out with, or anything, like any last, you know?
No, you know, like I said, you know, make this as part of your business. Use it to complement your business. Add fuel to the fire. Do more good of, you know, in the areas you are already in. And don't forget, opendoor.com/agents is where you would go to get all this information, whether it's the referral information, whether it's getting an offer. There is frequently asked questions. There are blogs of how you can best use us. So there's tons of information there. Don't be afraid of it. And I'm always available. If you have questions, you can hit me up on Facebook. You can email me at nima.kangahi@opendoor.com, or even easier than that, agents@opendoor.com. We've got an entire team waiting to answer questions for you.
All right. Well, again, thanks for answering the hard questions. You know, I asked some stuff that, you know, I was hoping you were going to answer honestly, which I know that you have, and, you know, you're totally transparent, and I really appreciate that. And I think that that is a good indicator of the company itself, basically, because you guys are being super straightforward about everything. I think this is a great opportunity for everyone. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Those of you that sat in and watched this, really appreciate you investing your time to try and educate yourself and become a better real estate professional. Thank you very much and have a great day.